In the choice of today's chairman, I wasted no time in calling on the great African leader, the former president of Ghana, John Dramani Mahama, who in 18 months of one tenure, not second tenure, one tenure, he has one more to go. Hopefully, he will get it this year. I said, please, I want him to be the chairman. He told me, Dele, consider it done. He will be here any minute from now. He landed in Nigeria last night, having flown from London to Ghana 2 days ago, and had to travel out of Accra to come back to Accra and land in Lagos last night. So the rain, they are in the traffic, trying to navigate their way to NIA. So, of course, my brother, I call him Peter the Rock, former governor, Peter Obi. Anytime you call him, he's always as cool, as calm as the cucumber. So, he said, my brother, why not? This man, we met on a flight to London last year, and it was around the time of my birthday. So I told him, I said, my birthday is on Tuesday. He said, oh, he's going somewhere. I think he went to Italy or something. He said, but the day of your birthday is, I'm leaving on Virgin Atlantic in the night to Lagos. He said, so I will check in and come to your house. I was looking at the logistics. I said, no, it's not possible. You won't believe it. He showed up like an apparition in my house. So please help me give him a big round of applause. So I called, I have a young friend. He is my button to Senator Alhaji and my house. So please help me give him a big round of applause. So I called, I have a young friend. He is my button to Senator Alhaji and that's Mubarak. Where is Mubarak? That's my best friend. So anytime I want to reach his dad, I just call Mubarak. He said, give me some time. I'll come back to you. And I called Mubarak. And then maybe around midnight, Alhaji walks late into the night. I don't know how he does it, but he is such a brilliant gentleman. So Mubarak called me and said, hold on for Daddy. So I told Daddy, I said, please, I want you to come to Lagos. I know how far Lagos is from Abuja. And these days, for people who don't have too much, flying can be very difficult. And he said, no, Dele, I will honor you. You won't believe it. Till Mubarak called me again a few nights ago, I was still doubting that maybe they will call me. In fact, when I saw his call, I thought he was going to say, oh, sorry, Daddy cannot make it. Daddy is there. Please. He is one of the most powerful, one of the most dogged politicians in Nigeria. And I'm sure he's following in the robust tradition of Kano politics. The Malam Aminu Kanos, the Abubakar, and I'm happy that we still have people like you in our political system. May Allah continue to bless you, sir. So the next thing, I wanted a venue. You would have expected that maybe we go to a hotel and all that, but how do you listen to a good lecture in a too comfortable environment? So I said, no. I wanted a serious environment where everybody, please help me welcome the former president of Ghana, John Dramani Mahama, please. Thank you, sir. I knew the rain did do some shaggy, but we are representing you. Fortunately, my speech is the first, so you haven't missed anything, sir. Thank you, sir. Yes. So I settled for a place as the Nigerian Institute of International Affairs, which I like to call our own Chatham House. Our own Chatham House is abandoned, and is to send a powerful message to all of us that we should not abandon this place. The Director General is here, Professor Sage. Please stand up for recognition. Fantastic man. He invited me to be an associate fellow here, and I'm very grateful. I promised you that we will do something here, and I'm happy that we're doing it now. This is the bastion of intellectual diplomacy and home to robust ideas. I knew its auditorium was not in top shape, but this will be an opportunity to address the ugly attitude of ignoring our age-old institutions by making my own contribution. So, as a man of modest income, you must have read my letter. I'm proud to say I'm a man of modest income. I offered to buy 2 new air conditioners. You can see one there, you can see one here. Otherwise, we'll be sweating by now. I decided to change the red carpet, so you can see it looks new. That is what my modest income can afford. So, just like I did in my own village, you see, I realized that we all want to live comfortably within our homes without taking care of our environment. So in my village, in Ieve, in Owan East local government of Edo State, I had to tar the road to my village, to my home in the village. You won't believe it. Because otherwise, all of us will buy navigators and be navigating through undulating roads. So, that is what we did. Then beyond these cosmetic arrangements, there was something more important to me. In 1994, on this very podium, this was where Chief Moshood Kashimawo Olawale Abiola, my adopted father, attended his last corporate event, which was hosted by Nduka Obagbena. So for me, it brings back those memories. And I'm happy to announce that I have in this audience his daughter, who happens to be one of my biggest fans. I don't know what I have done to deserve it, but I have to do. Abiola, please stand up. Tudu Abiola, you know, is a television celebrity, extremely brilliant like his dad. And then I have a young friend who had to skip school today just to be with me. I didn't know until his mom told me, and that's Abiola's grandchild, Tarek. Please stand up for recognition. So you don't know how you affect people when you do things. So he insisted he must come with the mom, and they are here today. That's how I operate. If I believe in you, it doesn't matter. I will follow you to the depth of the ocean. President Mahama knows that. There is nothing they've not done to separate us. I said, Umba, we can't do that. So, he's not here, but he's on his way. I can never thank enough our chief host, who is my Egbon by 3 days. But in our culture, 3 days makes you a permanent older person. And that is His Excellency, Governor Ademola Nuruddin Jackson Adeleke, the governor of Oyo State. Osun State, you'll be joining us in a minute. Then, I needed a brain box. A brain box. I consult him. People think you can do things alone. No matter how brilliant you are, you must seek help. The brain box is sitting right here, Mr. Leke Older. Please stand up. This is the biggest in branding in Nigeria, if not Africa. And this man, I'm sure he doesn't mind, was battling with cancer and battling with other ailments. And he insisted we must have a session about this. All this branding you are seeing, he did gratis. Please help me thank him. He is such a man of courage. I call him Professor Socrates. So whenever I need something creative, I run to Professor Socrates. So I'm not advertising, but I am promoting that whenever you need to do something serious, please talk to this genius. I can go on and on and on, but I don't want to take so much of your time because the lecturer is ready. And yes, the lecturer is ready, and we have to, the show must go on. In all of this, what I want us to learn is that when you are committed to a struggle, you should not look back. Your family will bear the brunt and even the scars of it. I'm hardly at home. My first son, Olupekon, flew in this morning, and he has to return tomorrow to his work in London. He just came in this morning, and I want to thank him, thank his brother, Anytime Yoli, Eniafelamo, and above all, Chief Mrs. Mubolaji Abiodun Arike Momodu Omarowo Shugbo Obebiri Obesokoto Berry. Thank you so much, and God bless you all. Doctor, over to you.
Well, trust Bob D to end that on a romantic note. I'm sure we're all learning from him. Well, very quickly, as he was speaking, we had arriving Senator Rabiu Musa Kwankwanso, presidential candidate of the NMPP in the 2023 general elections and former governor of Kano State. Your Excellency, you're welcome, sir. And then also the chairman of this occasion arrived. But before I introduce the chairman, trying to give him a little time to catch his breath because he just joined us. But I also like to remark on the point Bob D was making about being very modest. Well, when I was introducing Bob D earlier on, I forgot to add the fact that he's a politician. In 2011, we will all recall that he tried to run for the presidency of Nigeria on the platform of the Labour Party. Now, that didn't work. He eventually ran on the platform of the National Conscience Party. We know the story of how that went. And then subsequently in 2022, he also showed interest in the presidency of Nigeria, but he ended up being one of the managers, media managers of the People's Democratic Party. And I've seen quite a number of persons from the People's Democratic Party here, including Etauso, who must have worked with Bob D at that time. Then, of course, a few more introductions. Senator Olubi Fadeyi is here. Yeye Adenike Shobaju is here. Ibrahima Fogzi, I saw him coming in earlier on. We also have here Erelu Olajumoke Fadeyi. We have Agbaoye Kola Karim. We have Mr. Segun Ogunsoya, GMD, Airtel Africa. And then we have Dr. Stephen Akintayo. We have Gbadebo Roadsvival. Gbadebo Roadsvival was the gubernatorial candidate of the Labour Party in Lagos State during the 2023 general elections. Mr. Ralph Limo, thank you for joining us. Dr. Bobby Moreau, Council, South African Embassy, thank you. Ketura King, I see you. Thank you for coming. Right, okay. And then very quickly, I'm now going to invite the chairman of this occasion to give his opening remarks before we go to the main lecture. Much later, the introductions will continue. Well, we're very privileged to have President John Dramani Mahama, one of those African leaders who have practically done everything. He started his political career as a member of parliament representing is it Boli Bomboy constituency from the Upper Volta region. And then he later went on to become a deputy minister and later substantive minister of communications. So look at it, MP, member of parliament, deputy minister, minister, later became vice president. And then when we had that unfortunate incident of the death of President John Atta Mills, he assumed office, and that was in 2012, July 2012. And he was president of Ghana from 2012 to 2017. Can we have a round of applause for him? Now, at the moment, President Mahama is the presidential candidate of the National Democratic Congress in the forthcoming 2024 general elections. During the primaries, he won the selection process, the voting process, by over 99% of the votes, which shows his popularity. Now, President Mahama is also an author, author of My First Coup d'etat, which is a book I recommend, to you all, very well written. And nobody should be surprised because he's also a writer. He used to run a column in one of the newspapers in Ghana titled Mahama's Armor. Well, no innuendo intended. But in addition to this, he has also served Africa, particularly in various capacities. He's been chairman of the ECOWAS, the regional body. He has led missions to elections, and he was the first Ghanaian president who became president who was born after Ghanaian independence. And then, of course, he continues to be honored all over the world, and he has very strong connections with Nigeria. He was given a honorary doctorate degree, for example, by Ekiti State University. The Faculty of Management Sciences of that Ekiti State University is also named after him. So in addition to many international, honors, awards, and recognitions. And President Mahama here as chairman at a discourse on the politics of energy and the way forward. I mean, we could not have chosen a better chairman because the subject is a subject that is very familiar, that resonates with the good people of Ghana. There's something in Ghana they call Dumso. Dumso means power cuts. And it was a very serious problem between 2012 and 2017. Now, up to now, this is 2024, Ghanaians are still talking about the effect of Dumso on businesses and lifestyles and productivity. So you see, we have a lot in common with Ghana. And part of the problem they have with the energy sector there is even parliament not paying electricity bills. That must be very familiar to Nigerians, where government institutions don't pay bills. And also issues of infrastructure and issues also, of resources with regard to energy. And just as in Ghana, they are talking about electric vehicles and alternative energy, we are also having that conversation here in Nigeria. So there's a lot that we share in common, and certainly President Mahama, given his rich experience and the leadership that he continues to provide in and out of office and on the field of politics, is eminently qualified to comment on these issues and provide very significant direction. Ladies and gentlemen, may I ask you to put your hands together for President Mahama as he invites him to the podium.
Thank you very much, and let me celebrate my friend and brother, Dele Momodu, and to congratulate him on this initiative and thank him for inviting me to join you. There's so many distinguished citizens here, and in order that I don't fall into the danger of not acknowledging anybody, let me proceed on the protocols that have been established, and to thank you all very much. Let me also apologize for my late arrival. We had a problem with the rainstorm that suddenly broke when we're about to set off, and I'm happy that finally we arrived. Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure to be here today to chair the inaugural Dele Momodu Leadership Lecture, the theme of which is the politics of energy and the way forward for Nigeria. This theme is most appropriate and suitable because despite Africa's tremendous energy resources such as hydro, wind, solar, and hydrocarbon potential, the continent continues to suffer from a severe energy deficit that undermines equitable economic growth and development. As you may be aware, the African continent is home to about 17.89% of the world's population, and it has about 600 million of its people without access to electricity, with a staggering 98% in sub-Saharan Africa and another 940 million people lacking access to clean cooking fuels and technologies. This calls for bold and decisive policies by continental leaders and pooling resources together if the continent is to achieve the Sustainable Development Goal number 7, which aims to ensure access to affordable, reliable, sustainable, and modern energy by the year 2030. World energy politics and the role of Nigeria. By its size, economic power, and population alone, Nigeria can be described as a natural continental economic leader and powerhouse in Africa. When we look more specifically at the country's energy resources, such as its oil, gas, and other minerals, Nigeria has the unique opportunity and the potential to achieve energy security and sufficiency for itself and indeed the entire West African sub-region. Today, our world is at a crossroads of what has become known as the energy trilemma. That is sustainability, energy security, and affordability. Already many Western countries have taken the path of transitioning to renewable energy primarily because of the factor of climate change and partly due to global geopolitical tensions. As a result, most sub-Saharan African countries are at the high risk of having stranded assets in petroleum reserves and infrastructure. Nigeria and sub-Saharan Africa must address the critical question about which energy pathway we intend to adopt. Are we to take a path of a wholesale transition by capping our oil and gas wells, or must we adopt a customized energy transition that prioritizes climate justice, wealth creation, and inclusive growth? This is a critical question we need to answer. And sub-Saharan Africa, especially West African sub-region, is looking up to our big brother Nigeria to make this decision. And this is the moment Nigeria must show leadership in the global politics of energy. Ghana's power sector has evolved over the years with the first power plant, the Akosombo hydroelectric dam, which currently produces 1,020 megawatts capacity, constructed under our nation's first president, Dr. in 1967. In 1982, the Pong hydroelectric power station was commissioned, and this increased Ghana's installed hydro generation capacity by another 160 megawatts. Although the Akosombo and Pond dams were designed to provide adequate electricity generation into the foreseeable future, Ghana suffered its first power crisis in 1984, following a severe drought, disrupting the generational capacity of the 2 hydro dams. And despite the commissioning of the 3rd hydro dam, a 400 megawatt Bui hydroelectric power dam in 2013, the power supply remained erratic and unreliable. With increasing energy demand coupled with unpredictable hydrology, dependence on the country's hydro potential as the sole source of electricity has proved untenable. And therefore, a decision was taken to diversify the nation's generation mix by introducing thermal power and other forms of energy to augment the hydro capacity from the 1990s. To realize this objective and to resolve a crippling energy crisis, and as our compare said, it's popularly called Dumso in Ghana. Dum means off, so means on. So it means off and on. That's a literal translation of Dumso. I don't know how you say it in Nigeria, but I remember when I was here, it says, NEPA don't take power. Yeah. As a result of this crisis, and I was president then, I led the fastest mobilization of thermal power in the history of Ghana, mobilizing about 1,000 megawatts of emergency thermal power to the country's generation mix by the time I left office in 2017. Mindful of the need to attain fuel supply security and reliability while addressing environmental concerns, the government of Ghana initiated various policy measures to ensure that the country derives maximum benefits from its newly discovered oil and gas resources by ushering in what we called the gas to power era. This was evidenced in the establishment of the Ghana National Gas Development Task Force to review and propose approaches to ensure full utilization of the country's gas resources through a gas commercialization project in 2009. And this culminated in the completion of the $1 billion Etuabo gas processing plant in 2015, and is located at Etuabo in the Elembele district of the Western region to process, transport, and market Ghana's domestic natural gas from Ghana's Jubilee and 10 fields to meet domestic and industrial needs of the country. Following the discovery of additional gas resources in the offshore Cape 3 Points area in 2009, we decided to leverage the World Bank and other partners to undertake the US $7.7 billion Sankofa natural gas project by constructing an integrated offshore oil and gas processing plant to supply additional gas capable of generating 1,100 megawatts of thermal power. You're welcome, Your Excellency. These policy interventions have resulted in domestic gas accounting for about 82% of Ghana's thermal requirements and 40% of domestic LPG supply. So it means that in Ghana, almost 80% of all electricity is generated using liquid natural gas. The other 20% continues to rely on fossil fuels. So the plan going forward is to be able to cover the total generation with liquid natural gas 100% before the year 2030. The decision to switch to gas as an alternative to light crude oil has undoubtedly resulted in increased fuel supply and reliability and significant cost savings for the country. For instance, in 2022, 107.65 billion scarf of gas was exported from Ghana's oil-producing fields for power generation and industrial consumption. This is equivalent to 20.45 million barrels of crude oil. And so if we're not using natural gas, we'd have had to buy 20.45 million barrels of light crude oil to generate electricity. The cumulative savings from switching from light crude to gas is estimated at 1.34 billion. It means that if Ghana was continuing to use light crude oil, instead of natural gas. We would have had to spend $1.54 billion over the period. As a result of these policy decisions, which undeniably has not been an easy journey, it may interest you to know that Ghana currently has enough dependable generation capacity at 5,454 megawatts. And so the current doomsaw that we're going through is not because we don't have the generation capacity, it's because we don't have enough fuel to be able to meet the demand. And so current generation capacity stands at 5,454 megawatts, both for domestic consumption, and Ghana currently exports power to neighboring Togo, Burkina Faso, Cote d'Ivoire, and Benin within the framework of ECOWAS cooperation. I'll touch a bit on the West African power pool in a minute. Ladies and gentlemen, on the local front, an aggressive rural electrification policy launched in 2009 increased electricity access rates in Ghana from 60.8% to over 80% in 8 years. The solid foundation we laid has resulted in an impressive 88.5% current access rate. It means that 88.5% of Ghanaians have access to electric power. And Ghana is on course to achieve universal access to electricity at the target date. Policy reforms have equally been at the center stage of our energy sector, with power sector reform dating back to the early 1990s by the Ghanaian government, resulting in the creation of an energy commission in 1997 as a technical regulator of electricity, natural gas, and renewable energy industries. And also the formation of the Public Utilities Regulatory Commission in the same year provides guidelines for tariffs and charges on public utility services, especially water and electricity. More importantly, we have unbundled the vertically integrated Volta River Authority, and I'm sure you would have heard about this. They are the managers of the Akosombo hydroelectric power station. But they also controlled the national electric grid. And so we unbundled it and made them concentrate on power generation. And then we formed Gridco, which is responsible for all the transmission lines in the country. Ladies and gentlemen, despite the remarkable success chalked over the years, increasing demand for electricity to satisfy domestic use and export and gas supply constraints is beginning to pose significant challenges, threatening the nation's power supply reliability as demand continues to increase. It's estimated that demand increases between 10 and 12% every year. And so it means that you must always plan ahead, both in terms of having access to enough fuel and also putting in the generation capacity to be able to meet that demand. Since the beginning of the year, power supply reliability has been erratic, largely due to the inability of the current government to expand and increase the gas infrastructure to meet the rising demand. This therefore calls for very serious policy rethinking if we are to resolve this current challenge. And that's why the compare said that doomsaw is back. This year we've been suffering a lot of power outages in Ghana. Ladies and gentlemen, with the 2024 elections around the corner, my party has proposed to declare 2025 as an accelerated age of oil and gas production should we win the elections. Natural gas will be the central area of focus for us, for our future. Private partners such as the Chamber of Upstream Producers of Ghana have already declared their commitment to invest in natural gas exploration and production with the needed government support. Let me use this opportunity to invite potential investors in Nigeria. When it comes to oil and gas production, you are big brothers, and I know you have more expertise than us. And so I use this occasion to invite potential investors from Nigeria to invest in Ghana's hydrocarbon potential. Let me also commend Nigeria for its leadership in the implementation of the West African Gas Pipeline Company, WAPCO, which has played a critical role in Ghana's energy future. Following on the success of the West African Gas Pipeline Company model, I firmly believe that we can replicate the model in the downstream petroleum sector for our mutual benefit. The future of Sub-Saharan African development greatly depends on the success story of Nigeria's energy sector. I wish to call on Nigeria to lead the politics of energy resources in Africa. On this note, there is an urgent need for Ghana and Nigeria to deepen our economic and technical cooperation in harnessing and developing our energy resource potential for energy security and reliability as a catalyst for industrialization, job creation, and equitable wealth distribution for the entire West African sub-region. The establishment of the West African Power Pool, which I talked about just a while ago, the wholesale market presents an excellent opportunity for energy integration in West Africa. Ghana has already constructed a high-voltage electricity transmission network that connects us to Togo, Benin, Burkina Faso, Mali, and Cote d'Ivoire. So it makes it possible for us to evacuate excess power into the grid for export to any of these countries. The critical step left is the synchronization of the entire West African Power Pool interconnected transmission system, which includes a link with the Nigerian system, and also a connection to Niger and the northern parts of Togo and Benin. This will undoubtedly create a great opportunity for ECOWAS countries, especially notably Nigeria, because Nigeria has the potential to have excess power that it can put into the West African Power Pool for use by other countries that have a deficit. So notably, Nigeria, with vast resources and available generation capacity to trade in the regional electricity markets, will be an advantage for our sub-region. Ladies and gentlemen, in conclusion, with our rich historical ties, the two countries of Ghana and Nigeria must urgently lead the process of realizing a fully liberalized and interconnected energy market in West Africa, to which energy sources, especially gas and electricity, can be easily traded amongst ourselves. Finally, the energy sector is the foundation for economic growth. Nigeria must take the leadership mantle to build a regional consensus that will provide a more promising future for Africa. African leaders must define their energy transition modalities and choose the most equitable, just transition. Nigeria has what it takes to lead the path for sub-Saharan Africa to advance our collective energy agenda by engaging its neighbors, such as Ghana, to achieve the delivery of reliable, affordable, and sustainable energy for the whole sub-region. I thank you very much for your attention. Thank you.
Well, something tells me that round of applause wasn't loud enough. I wasn't hearing it. Yeah, that's much better. And the big takeaway for me is what His Excellency said about how Nigeria can provide leadership in the energy transition and perhaps be the hub, for that transition within this West African region. Leadership. Again, that's why we are here today. Now, as President Mahama was making his presentation, we had the arrival of the chief host of this event, His Excellency, the Governor of Osun State, the performing and action Governor of Osun State. Please listen to me very well. If you go and use another phrase, you are on your own. His Excellency Senator Ademola Jackson Adeleke, and the Asiwaju of Edeland. Congratulations on your chieftaincy title, sir. And also, we also had the arrival of His Royal Majesty, Alayeluwa Abdurrashid Adewale Akanbi, Emperor Telu I, the Oluwo of Iwo, Kábíyèsí. And, you should be surprised that Emperor Telu I is here. Chief Dele Momodu is the Aare Dele of Igbo land. And Chief Mrs. Mobolaji Momodu is the Yeye Tayeshi of Igbo land. Okay, very quickly, a few more introductions before I talk about our guest speaker for today. Now, I just saw in the hall now the founder of Tingo Group, Dr. Umobose. You are welcome, sir. Now, the Tingo Group, they just have two products, Tingo Cola and Tingo Electric. Tingo Electric is energy drink. I recommend it to all people who may be interested. We also have with him Ebuwa Martins. Ebuwa Martins is here. Mr. Toludare is also with us. And we have Bishop Isaac Idahosa. Bishop Isaac Idahosa was a running mate to Senator Kwankwanso during the 2023 presidential elections. We have also Mr. Ladipo Johnson. Yes, Ladipo Johnson, I know him very well. I didn't see him earlier on. Okay, he must be in the hall. He's the National Publicity Secretary of the NMPP. And then we also have Honorable Mustafa Al-Kazim, who is National Welfare Secretary of the NMPP. We also have Engineer Mrs. Patricia Okpene. She's the representative of the President of the Nigerian Society of Engineers. Now, let me introduce our guest speaker. President Mahama already, gave us an idea of the challenge of energy transition and the kind of challenge that we face. But our guest speaker has also been very actively involved in this sector. He's a former Minister of Science and Technology in Nigeria, as I said earlier, former Minister of Power, also 2011 to 2012, and his CV is, a list of distinctions. He's currently Pro-Chancellor and Chairman of Governing Board, Bells University of Technology. He holds a PhD in Engineering from Virginia Tech and a certificate of postdoctoral studies in artificial intelligence and robotics from the MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Technology. And this was long before artificial intelligence became the big deal. He already, went ahead. He's a fellow of the Nigerian Academy of Science, fellow Nigerian Academy of Engineering. He's a 3-time recipient of national honors, officer of the Order of the Niger, commander of the Order of the Niger, and Nigerian National Order of Merit. He holds doctorate degrees in engineering, science, and technology from 6 universities. He served as a member of the governing board of the Nigerian National Merit Board. He received the United States Secretary of State's Distinguished Public Service Award. He also received the West African Power Industries Lifetime Achievement Award for 2014, and he holds the traditional title of Onwa Nkanu, covering a senatorial district in Enugu State. But the story that I really want to tell about Professor Bartholomew Nnaji is what he has done in the energy sector. Not just because he was Minister of Power or Minister of Science and Technology, but the fact that he's the founder and chairman of Geometric Power Limited, which is the biggest investment in the eastern part of Nigeria. And that Geometric Power Limited has set up Aba Power. Aba Power supplies electricity to 9 of the 17 local governments in Abia State. It was put together with about $800 million. And it covers about 150,000 kilometers of cables and wires and 7 mini power stations serving the people through an integrated power initiative. Now, this geometric power and Aba power is the product of what the Nigerian government decided to do in 2005 when we had the Electricity Sector Reform Act of 2005. And the big thing about that act was that it opened the doors for private initiative, involvement, and investment in the power sector. Now, that Electricity Sector Reform Act has been further reformed with the Electricity Sector, Electricity Act of 2023, which further expands the scope. But what is important is that in this regard, Professor Bartholomew Nnaji has been a pioneer. During the Obasanjo administration, between 2000 and 2001, now it was geometric power, which he founded, that built a 22 megawatt emergency power plant in Abuja, which was serving major government buildings, including the presidential villa. And so, geometric power is the first indigenous power or electricity company in Nigeria. And that's as a result of the commitment and creativity and initiative of Professor Bartholomew Nnaji. Aba Power, which he has brought to fruition, by the way, Aba Power was commissioned on February 26, 2024. It's a ring-fence initiative to serve Aba, or that area, because that's a major area of industrialization. And we all know, of course, that without electricity, industries cannot do so much. And also, that for you to have the ease of doing business, there must be power supply, energy supply. But as we have heard from President Mahama, there are challenges, but there are also ways forward. And on this note, I would like to invite to the podium scholar, author, distinguished Nigerian citizen. He alone has 2-3 national honors, when some of us have not even been given one. Professor Bartholomew Nnaji.
Thank you so much, Chief Dr. Reuben Abati. You are just exactly who you are, an encyclopedia of a lot of things about the nation and the world. Thank you so much. Your Excellency, the chairman of the occasion, John Dramani Mahama, I understand that you're also a newly crowned chief in our country, so congratulations, former President of Ghana. Your Excellency, Chief Ademola Adeleke, Governor of Osun State and Chief Host. Your Excellency, Mr. Peter Obi, Your Excellency, Senator Kwankwaso, Your Excellency, Donald Duke, very distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to plead your indulgence to rest on an already established protocol, as we say here in Nigeria. So just like the President and Chairman said, I don't want to fall into the trap of having to miss so many people, because it is totally possible considering the number of very distinguished people here. Let me first start by congratulating Aare Dele Momodu, Chairman of Ovation Group, for joining us. Actually, he said that he joined us 4 years ago on the 6th floor. Though you have many years yet on this floor, You have managed to pack so many accomplishments on your journey up to the various floors to this one. So your friends, family, and I are wishing a life of happiness, prosperity, and good health to you as you climb to the rest of the floors that the Almighty may grant you. I also want to thank you so much for asking me to do this, the very first, this lecture series. And what you said is so apt because we need to begin to really get into our minds about solving our problems. And the topic chosen must be appropriate, something that really goes to the heart of the matter. And I believe you've chosen right in terms of the topic. Dele, you have been a man of great character, not prone to bend to the whims and caprices of our nation's powers. I recall how you gallantly chose me as your 2012 Man of the Year, even though I had resigned as Minister of Power the previous August. You asked the then Governor of Rivers State, Right Honorable Rotimi Amechi, to come all the way from Port Harcourt to make the presentation to me in early 2013. Such act stands you out as someone who looks beyond the chatter of our impious politics in whatever you do. God bless you. I like to think, and I think all of us were here listening to President Mahama, I think that it is important for someone who occupies the sort of position that he has occupied and seeks to occupy to have good mastery of statistics and knowledge of what the subject is about. He has been able to tell us a lot about the value chain of energy. He's also been able to link it with politics and the economics. We thank you very much, sir. In fact, you've made my job easier because Dele chose for me to talk about politics of energy. So I will go straight to the politics of energy and not have to address all these wonderful issues that you've covered. Thank you. The modern global economy runs on energy. That's very clear. Contemporary geopolitics are shaped by energy. For instance, it is wondered whether the United States of America would have risked the lives of thousands of its troops and spent so much financial resources on rescuing Kuwait from the vice grip of the then Iraqi president, Saddam Hussein, if the little desert nation with sparse population had not been full of petroleum. The speculation is important because when Saddam Hussein moved into Kuwait on 8 August 1989 and occupied it, which caused pandemonium throughout the globe, Liberia was about to start a descent into anarchy. Liberia is not just another country. It was an American colony created for freed African slaves. Its capital, Monrovia, is named after the 5th American president, James Monroe, who was president of America from 1817 to 1825, widely remembered for the Monroe Doctrine that the American hemisphere should be treated as the American backyard. the doctrine precludes outsiders from meddling in affairs around the United States. Yet, Washington ignored the chaos and anarchy in Liberia that started on December 24, 1989, when Charles Taylor led the National Patriotic Front of Liberia to launch a war from Nimba County that shares border with the Ivory Coast. Nigeria was compelled, as the giant of Africa, to not only move its troops, Army, Navy, and Air Force into Liberia, but also spend a fortune in the country under the auspices of Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS. I understand that at the end of the war, Nigeria lost about 1,000 officers and soldiers, that is, a whole battalion, and also spent some $8 billion on the ECOMOG operation. Now, let us move away from events of the 1990s and the wars. Let us reflect on the international events of the last couple of years concerning energy. The West, particularly Western Europe, has been mounting a relentless campaign for cleaner energy. It wants the world to embrace solar, wind, and other forms of renewable energy, like hydropower. It has been asking mostly the developing countries to abandon coal in particular, referring to it as the greatest environmental pollutant through carbon emission. It has even added natural gas to the list. So when Mr. President was talking about natural gas and the plan of his government, should he win, to focus also on natural gas, just to know that these people have added natural gas as a major pollutant. So it has added natural gas, all in an effort to make the world limit global warming to 1.5 degrees centigrade by 2030, as required by the Paris Accord on Climate Change of 2015. Something dramatic was to happen in 2022. Following Russia's invasion of Ukraine, European nations imposed a series of sanctions on Russia. Moscow, in return, took punitive actions against the West. Western countries like Germany, which depended largely on gas exports from Russia, began to feel the pinch. Germany, the largest European economy, decided to revive, would you believe it, coal-fired plants that it had resolved under Angela Merkel to close down. Though there was no imminent threat to power shortage in Germany, Berlin chose to reverse its policy on coal plants rather than risk in any way the chance of its people suffering any form of electricity crisis. Germany was not alone. The United Kingdom, which had prided itself on shutting down its coal-fired plants and on building large wind farms, decided to resuscitate its coal plants. Why? It didn't want its citizens to suffer the 2022 heat wave unduly. A similar scenario emerged in France the same year. Faced with winter, which could hurt its people, Paris chose to extend the lifespans of its coal-fired plants. Though electricity from coal was responsible for only about 0.6% of national electricity in France, the French government had to extend the lifespans of coal-fired plants just to protect its people. This is the country where 196 countries, including the Vatican City, signed the famous Paris Accord on climate change under the United Nations auspices. The United States is proud that several of its coal-fired plants have been decommissioned. Coal used to account for 50% of America's electricity, but the figure has now reduced to about 17.8%, and it is expected that it may decline to 4% by 2030. Environmentalists are delighted at the rapid decline, but it would appear that decline has not been driven by as much commitment to environmental protection as by economics. Even though the Joe Biden administration has a special envoy on climate change, it is easier and cheaper to run a natural gas-fired plant than a coal-fired one. As a fact, in fact, a coal-fired plant, let's use Nigeria, would cost you anywhere from a gas-fired will cost you anywhere from $1.3 to $1.5 million to install 1 megawatt. But coal-fired would cost you at least $2 million. So, but that's not quite the issue. The issue is about availability of the fuel. Now, it is easier, as I said, to run a natural gas-fired plant than coal one, thanks to enhanced shale gas production in the United States. In fact, fossil fuels make up 60% of the total fuel to power in America, since gas contributes more than 42% of the fuel to power in America. So, decommissioning the coal-fired plants, yes, but then there's another fossil fuel that's taken its place. The Donald Trump administration used to celebrate the ubiquity of coal all over the United States, its affordability, the convenience of its storage and use, the case of its transportation, the generous use by steel, aluminum, and cement manufacturers, its extensive use by railway firms, the millions of American workers who depended on it, its host communities, several American businesses that relied on it, directly and indirectly, and its key role in American industrial history. You trust that Mr. Trump will talk in this way about such a product. There is something that we should know about the Americans as they deactivate their coal plants, a great concern for the common good. The United States Department of Energy has been looking for ways to fill the gap created by the declining coal plants. It thinks that converting the coal plants to nuclear plants will result in additional $275 million in the communities annually. That is, communities that hosted the coal-fired plants being decommissioned. So it wants the affected coal plants replaced by nuclear power plants. This is to ensure that the electricity workers retain their jobs and that the host communities remain economically active. There is the argument that repurposing the plants from coal-fired to nuclear will reduce the cost of building brand new stations by 30%. A nuclear plant requires a fraction of the fuel required by, say, a coal-fired plant to produce the same amount of power. But its wastewater is dangerous. And the primary raw material used for nuclear energy is uranium, which is mined and therefore constitutes environmental degradation. Of course, it is not only nations that have displayed self-interest in the dialogue over fossil fuels. Take the case of the 5 superstar oil and gas companies: Shell, ExxonMobil, Total Energies, Chevron, and British Petroleum. Well, actually, ExxonMobil and Chevron did not claim to be as committed to cleaner energy as their European counterparts. Shell, under Ben Van Beurden leadership, tried to sell itself as a leader in the vanguard of the campaign for clean energy and paid a price for it. While it was posting huge profits, its stock performance on the exchanges was flat. Unlike those of Chevron and ExxonMobil, investors were not sure whether Shell was an oil and gas firm or one dealing in renewables. All this changed with the assumption of office of Wael Sewan, the Lebanese Canadian, as its chief executive officer in January of 2023. Sewan has left no one in doubt that his loyalty is not to environmentalists, but to shareholders. Shell has resumed heavy investments in oil and gas. It has reduced its climate ambitions by scaling down its goal of reducing the net carbon intensity of its energy products from 20% to 15% by 2030. Its investments in renewables came down from $3.5 billion in 2022 to $2.5 billion in the same year, in 2023. Shell is not alone. The other British superstar petroleum company, BP, has taken similar steps. Its investment in low-carbon energy are 7 times less than its investments in fossil fuel, while those of Shell are 5 times lower. Total Energies of France, in April 2023, announced a reduction of its climate ambitions from 35 to 40% in emissions in 2030 to 20 to 30% is a range in the same period. The Shell CEO has an interesting explanation for the new ongoing huge investment in oil and gas by the petroleum majors. That is, the world needs energy security. I believe what he is really saying is that the Western nations need energy security. And so you're on your own in how you achieve what they want, but they're going to do what they want to ensure that they have energy security. Now, renewable energy has been marketed as the silver bullet to climate change. Many are therefore under the impression that there are no environmental issues with electric vehicles, solar panels, solar batteries, wind farms, dams, etc. They are in error, actually. Electric vehicles, for instance, are expensive to begin with. So Tesla vehicles' price range from $40,000 to $47,000, though Elon Musk has been rattled by cheaper electric vehicles from China, like those from BYD, and is therefore working very hard to produce more affordable vehicles. This thing has happened in America in the past in terms of when they began to talk about emissions. So the Japanese were producing cheaper vehicles and also better emitting, carbon emitting vehicles. And Americans had to go and compete to begin to produce same, to catch up. So, what is more, there are not enough supercharger networks in the United States. To worsen matters, other electric cars could not recharge at Tesla's facilities until recently. They're beginning to change. Solar panels and batteries do not charge at night. We know that. This adds to the deficit of high costs, especially in poor nations. However, those deficiencies are hardly mentioned in mainstream Western media. It is like a wind farm works only when there is considerable wind. But this inadequacy is also not usually discussed. So you can imagine if we begin to rely on wind farms, there are only certain parts of Nigeria where this could work. Solar is something, the radiation intensity is also an issue. So certainly in parts of the southern part, you don't have enough to power solar. It's not that you can't at all. It is just that you don't have enough to make it economically viable. You can do in the rooftops and so on, but the big solar farms are more economical where the intensity is higher. So, a critical raw material used in the production of solar panels and batteries is lithium ion. It is a mineral like coal or crude oil. It is mined. The process of extracting it is environmentally hazardous as well. But this is not usually discussed. In Chile, where it is produced more than in any other country, nearby rivers have been polluted. Protests by the citizens against pollution have been met by brute force, by security agents, violating the rights and dignity of the people. In the Democratic Republic of Congo, DRC, where cobalt, copper, and lithium ion are produced massively, there are human rights abuses on an industrial scale. There is also child labor, in addition to other forms of labor exploitation. The beneficiaries are mostly Western multinationals. The DRC government, towards the end of April 2024, hired the services of a team of French lawyers to write to Apple Corporation, the American technology giant, accusing it of benefiting from illegal actions in the eastern part of its country, where lithium ion and copper are used in manufacture of electronic gadgets like our smartphones and solar panels, as well as batteries, where they are mined. Rebels are active, very much so, in those parts of DRC. You can imagine, because the big companies that rely on this hire rebels also to be part of the business. In New York State, where the government plans to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 40% by 2030 and by 85% by 2050 from the 1990 levels through solar and wind power, There have been protests against the conversion of farmlands to solar and wind farms. There have also been protests against the destruction of biodiversity and the habitat generally. And this is in America. The most difficult and controversial issue deliberated on at the Conference of Parties, popularly known as COP28, which held in Dubai from 30th November to December 13 last year, was the fate of fossil fuels. At the end of the deliberations, participants agreed on a shift that would happen in a quote, just, orderly, and equitable manner. No date or timeline was given. But it was provided that developing economies, particularly those that depend on fossil fuels, be assisted. In doing so, the level of development and poverty of each country will be taken into consideration. We are yet to see how this is going to happen. It'll be very interesting, wouldn't it? Much as the agreement and wording of the resolutions are considered a win-win for those who wanted an immediate ban on fossil fuels and those opposed to the idea completely, it is often wondered whether the participants could have taken a more realistic, different position. The world needs environmental protection, but the world just cannot do without fossil fuel, at least for now. That's the bottom line. And that's what those who were campaigning for total elimination of fossil fuel in Europe discovered more recently. As the experience has demonstrated in just the last 2 years, the European nations that have been in the forefront for clean energy found themselves returning to coal-fired plants when their interests were threatened in the wake of the Russian invasion of Ukraine 2 years ago. The United States relies on fossil fuel substantially. China, India, Japan, Russia, and others still rely on these kinds of fuel. Only a handful of nations. Thank you very much. Yes. Take it. Thank you. But there's no place to place it. So only a handful of nations like Greece, Spain, and Portugal have crossed the clean energy line. At the G7 meeting of ministers responsible for the environment, climate, and energy held in Turin this last April, it was agreed that coal plants would be phased out among these nations by 2035, but that the participants were realistic enough to provide that those which could not meet the target should be allowed to continue to use coal-fired plants on condition that it would not compromise their commitment on bringing down global warming to 1.5 degrees centigrade by 2030. So what some countries would do is to have the companies that are emitting a lot of carbon to buy carbon credit. For example, the big forests in the Amazon, they keep the forest and they sell the carbon. It's actually traded on the stock exchange in New York. I wish we would trade something like that here in Nigeria, because there we have a lot of forests. So it is unlikely that Japan can afford to stop using coal by 2035. Germany has set a 2030 2030 deadline, but there is no guarantee it will make it. The G7 member nations that campaigned for the phasing out of coal plants by 2035 are those which have already abandoned coal plants or used them minimally. In other words, what the world saw at the recent G7 ministers meeting in Italy is self-interest everywhere and becoming the big elephant in the room. How do we go from this? So this fact should not be lost on us here in Nigeria and our government. The primary responsibility of every government is to its people, their welfare and their security. This point is worth reiterating because Nigeria seems to pay more attention to gas exports than the domestic gas market because of the prospects of huge foreign exchange earnings, which the country needs desperately. Gas producers naturally prefer to export their products because their domestic prices are regulated, subsidized, and perhaps sold at below world market in some cases, not in all cases. Besides, those who supply gas to privatized power generating companies are typically owed, especially those GENCOs, not happening in our geometric power, I must tell you. We pay our bills. The Trans-Sahara gas pipeline is being constructed with a pipeline measuring 46 to 56-inch gauge so that it can carry billions of cubic meters of natural gas from Nigeria to Europe through North Africa. One or two cynics have wondered in recent times how sustainable the project may be in the long run. This is because Europeans, as you know very well from what I've been talking about, are in the forefront and the vanguard of eliminating fossil fuel. So we have to ask ourselves, if they find alternative, will they buy our gas? By that time, we would have invested heavily on a huge pipeline. I think if you come close to any of the pipes, it's almost the height of an average human being. The way gas works is that you have to line pack the gas before anybody even uses it, which means the thousands of kilometers must be line packed. You can imagine how much gas that is before you even begin to sell the gas. So, as Nigeria plans to embark on massive export of natural gas, the country is facing severe gas shortages at home. When General Sani Abacha military regime intervened in Sierra Leone in the 1990s under the ECOWAS rubric to flush out the new military regime and restore democratic rule there, Nigeria was described by a section of the international community as a country that was exporting what it did not have, democracy, but importing what it ought to have in abundance, namely petroleum products. The description may well fit the gas sector today. Nigeria has more than 200 trillion cubic feet of untapped gas reserves. It is estimated that convertible gas is at least 139 trillion cubic feet. It is one of the world's leading countries in gas. Yet, there is not enough gas or even liquefied petroleum gas used in the kitchen. Even in Nigeria's liquefied natural gas company, that is Nigeria LNG, a major foreign earner for Nigeria that has guaranteed market, it has been operating at about 60% capacity on account of insufficient gas supply. But that company is doing very well. It's trying to build next train, Train 7. But it needs the gas. And the gas is here. We have it. But it needs to come out from the ground. The petroleum companies supplying gas to power plants are in a tighter position. I believe, really, and frankly, that a state of emergency needs to be declared in the gas sector. The declaration will save the power sector and allow the government and the other stakeholders to address fundamental issues in the gas sector in a robust manner. The issues will include how to strike healthy balance between producing gas for export and gas for domestic consumption. Gas is equally needed in both markets. Now, another critical area in Nigeria's power sector is the transmission network. I believe that having the national grid the way we have it is still going to be a problem. First, it is not robust, it's not well structured. My advocacy is for multiple grids. State of emergency needs to be declared in the gas sector. The declaration will save the power sector and allow the government and the other stakeholders to address fundamental issues in the gas sector in a robust manner. The issues will include how to strike healthy balance between producing gas for export and gas for domestic consumption. Gas is equally needed in both markets. Now, another critical area in Nigeria's power sector is the transmission network. I believe that having the national grid the way we have it is still going to be a problem. First, it is not robust, it's not well structured. My advocacy is for multiple grids, semi-autonomous, but connected to the national grid, so that the national grid still operates and it's made more robust. It will begin to cure the regular incidents of failure of the network. When I was in government, we embarked on a project, or rather we actually got Federal Executive Council to approve what we call a super grid, a 765 kV network that will kind of ride above the existing 330 kV network. So right now Nigeria has 330 kV and 132 kV, but none of them really robust. But the 765 kV network would be very important to take power from power plants such as the Mambila that's been in the works for a while. Over 3,000 megawatts of power will come from Mambila. So the question is, which transmission infrastructure will take that power? Suppose that we finish it. Now, you need a super grid to take that power, and so that Nigeria has the ability to take power from various power plants and transmit to wherever we want it. Now, I am happy that the current Minister of Power, Chief Adebayo Adela, is reviving this this super grid. And I think we have to support him on that because it's a very important project. Our conception was that it would be done in sections by different companies so that it's not just one of these big elephant, white elephant projects that you give to one company and they just go and sit with it. The development of electric power sector has also been stalled for years because of the suspension of what we developed at that time called partial risk guarantee to support a power purchase agreement. A government that's buying power has to issue power purchase agreement to the producer of power, and that power purchase agreement must be guaranteed. You can issue sovereign guarantee, but in the case that we are talking about, we wanted to have partial risk guarantee supported by the World Bank and backstopped by Nigerian government. So we were able to do this, but only one project was completed on it. That is the Aare Dele project, 461 megawatt power plant, and then it was stopped 9 years ago. So the outcome is that for that period of time, Nigeria has not commissioned a government-sponsored power project. And you heard the President of Ghana, or President of Ghana, say that you need to be adding, he said over 12% of energy to your country year on year. Because if you're going to grow the economy, that's what you need. So, I mean, it is very clear. So if in 9 years we have not added, you can imagine. I can also tell you that because of that partial risk guarantee, at least 4 or 5 major projects had been fully developed, but stopped. So I encourage the government to reawaken those projects. They are very important. Very, very critical. So, I have talked here about major current developments in energy, industry, and international, as well as the local environments. It is self-evident that nations and commercial entities are guided principally by their interests, despite their strong pledges to fight the climate change with all their might and resources. Even environmentalists who fiercely insist that poor nations shut down their fossil fuel plants to save the earth. I call them tree huggers, but they would come with patriotic stand. They take patriotic stand when their country's interests are affected directly. For instance, Greenpeace Germany in August 2022 described Germany's decision to restore coal-fired plants as bitter but inevitable. So even in the unlikely event that rich nations win themselves off fossil fuel within the foreseeable future, the earth will continue to be polluted because most developing nations do not have the resources and technical know-how to transition yet to cleaner energy. Bangladesh, a nation of 170 million people, has been building new coal power plants, and the beneficiaries are not just local people and local businesses, but also big Western firms like Walmart of the United States and Zara of Spain. Developed countries and multilateral institutions need to assist developing countries with technology, human capital development, infrastructure, and finance to grapple with the basic challenges of development. After all, the climate crisis was unleashed by the rich nations. The point, this is very, very important. The poor nations are merely the victims. Countries like Nigeria have the responsibility to remind developed nations that much as natural gas is a fossil fuel, it is actually a transition fuel. Mr. President, transition fuel, not just merely fossil fuel. That's why they bandy it and tell you that it's part of fossil fuel, so you should go and stop with fossil fuel. No. In fact, I will tell you, in Nigeria, I would say that for the next 20 to 30 years, we will continue to rely on natural gas for power production, provided that we go and invest in production of natural gas. So while the Nigerian government should be encouraged to explore more foreign markets for its resources like natural gas, sight should Russia, India, and China, or even the CIVES, their research, Colombia, Indonesia, Vietnam, Egypt, Turkey, and South Africa. We're not even in that. An emergency, as I said, has to be declared in the domestic gas market to save the electric power sector and address other issues. The supergrid should be given priority to boost the nation's transmission infrastructure. The federal government has to resume signing power purchase agreements with appropriate guarantee instruments. The whole idea of partial risk guarantee is that it doesn't go on the balance sheet of government in the way just ordinary sovereign guarantee would. So it's a fraction of what it would have been that's in the books of government, given the credit rating of the country. So, this will help us to experience proper economic prosperity and trajectory like other emerging nations such as the BRIC nations, Brazil, Russia, India, and China, or even the CIVETs. There is such. Colombia, Indonesia, Vietnam, Egypt, Turkey, and South Africa. We're not even in that one. I believe that we can achieve all of this if we apply the willpower as a nation and the right frame of mind to change the energy equation, just like the BRIC and the CIVET countries. It is up to us. Thank you very much.
I think that Professor Bartholomew Nnaji deserves a standing ovation. Thank you. A standing ovation for him. It's not every day that you have the opportunity to listen to that wide-ranging Gokula. Well, this is part of the Ojaja Pan-Africa Limited. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, His Royal Majesty, the Oni of Ife, Alailua Adeyeye Ogunwusi, CFR, Kabiyesi. Thank you. Okay. We also have in our midst the Balogun of Ife. The Balogun of Ife is a father figure to the celebrant of today. They have a father and son relationship. Chief Alex Duduyemi, Balogun of Ife. You are welcome, sir. Oh, is Ashiwaju? Oh, okay. Okay. But there was a time Chief Duduyemi was Aru. Aru Ashiwaju. Okay, Aru Ashiwaju of Ife. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Then we also have the CEO of Future One Africa Network, Mr. Idris Usman, in our midst. Mr. Idris Usman. Yes, I saw earlier on also Pastor Itwa Igodalo. Pastor Itwa Igodalo of Trinity House. Thank you for joining us. And then for special recognition, I'm told to introduce Promise Temitope Joshua. Promise Temitope Joshua, if you are in the hall, we welcome you. That's the daughter of Pastor T.B. Joshua. And then I also want to recognize specially Kikelomo Atondao, who is here. And then we also have with us veteran journalist Mike Awunyemfa, Mr. Mike Awunyemfa is here. Debola Williams is here. Debola Williams, I saw him around earlier. Mr. Sonny Rabo, another veteran broadcaster. You know, quite a number of veteran broadcasters here. Earlier on, I introduced Chief Bisi Olachilo. I introduced Mrs. Bimbo Oloyede. And then we also have in our midst Adewale Adebajo from the UK High Commission. Yeah, thank you for joining us. Well, there will be more introductions. I have quite a long list, but quickly. Chief Momodu has told me that, look, we should try and wrap this up latest 2 o'clock. And so this next segment we're going to, we will expect that people, you know, who are called to the podium will try to be mindful of time so that people don't get caught up in traffic on the island. So to address some of the issues about the energy question, the value chain, the way forward that Professor Bartholomew Nnaji has raised, and some of the issues that President John Mahama raised in his chairman's opening remarks. I would like first to invite Mr. Peter Obi, presidential candidate of the Labour Party in the 2023 general elections.
The chairman of the occasion and our dear president, my own, Your Excellencies, let me stand on all due and existing protocols. Well, mine is a very simple one. First is to say big congratulations of your birthday, Dele Momodu. And thank you for what you did here, because until you said it, when we came in here, we were wondering what happened to this place. It's unfortunate that you have to be the one to change this place rather than Nigeria. So thank you very much for that contribution. He's the one who changed the carpet and everything. That's how Nigeria works, lack of maintenance. So it's important that it's noted. And thank you for showing that we need to maintain a place. Because, like you said, you shouldn't have been the one doing it. We must learn to maintain before we build a new one. We should stop doing new one until we finish the existing ones. Number two, I thank the guest lecturer for what you did and what you said. Thank you. When the president of Ghana said they're generating and distributing 5,000 megawatts, I was wondering, Ghana with 1/7 of our population probably generates and distributes more than us. I was doing the calculation and we're discussing with Governor Duke. We must declare emergency in power. And the way to go is very simple. Embedded power and insist on gas supply. We have gas. We have it all over the place. I do not think, yes, we need the dollars, but I think making Nigeria more productive and pulling our people out of poverty, especially in the north, will give us far more value and dollars than focusing on exports. I think it's time to declare emergency. Geometric has shown it in Aba that embedded power will help us in that emergency. We should encourage it all over Nigeria. Thank you.
Okay, very quickly, as I said, we're trying to save time. May I invite to the podium Senator Dr. Rabiu Musa Kwankwanso, presidential candidate of the NNPP in the 2023 elections, former Senator of the Federal Republic, former Governor of Kano State.
Our royal fathers here present, Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Let me start by thanking Almighty God for giving us this opportunity to be here, and also it's an opportunity to congratulate our brother, our friend, Dele Momodu, for attaining this age. I say on behalf of all of us, once again, congratulations to you. The chairman of the occasion, the former President of Ghana, I'm sure many people are not aware that Nigeria is his second home, and in Nigeria, Kano in particular. And because of his living in Kano, he speaks Hausa more than many of us. So it's a pleasure meeting you here once again, and I thank the celebrant for giving us this opportunity to meet our friends and brothers from across Africa. Guest speaker, thank you. We have been enlightened. In fact, if there was time, I had wanted you to tell us more about your experience of the power generation and distribution in Aba. And it will be a good opportunity, especially for businessmen and women, not only in Nigeria, but across the world, to emulate the good work that you have done. We need many, many more of Professor Nnaji in this country. With him, I'm sure this country would achieve much more. Let me at this point say that especially the Governor Ocean is here to say that the importance of electricity cannot be overemphasized. And that was why when I was governor in Kano, I selected 2 out of 23 earth dams that we have in Kano and installed some equipment, and I'm happy to say that we were able to set up the power generation in Kano on Chalawa Gorge and Tiga dams producing or potentially to produce 35 megawatts. We completed the job in 2015, and I'm happy to say that I left 43 million US dollars in our account for the incoming governor to do the the distribution. Of course, not much was being done, but I'm sure our governor now, Abubakar Yusuf, will complete. You are laughing as if you knew that we couldn't find the 43 million naira when we came back. So Governor Adeleke should look at, and all other governors for that matter, should look at the possibility of generating power, because it's not a matter of only federal government alone. We will have to put all our heads and hands together to ensure that there is adequate and, of course, enough electricity in this country. For purposes of time, I want to say to celebrant once again, congratulations, and we wish you many more years of productive services to our nation. Thank you, and God bless you.
Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I would like to stand on all existing protocol. First and foremost, I would like to say congratulations to our brother, Chief Dele Momodu, for his birthday. The topic is a very important one when we think of Nigeria, think of Africa, and think of where this continent of Africa is going. If you think about politics, connect the nexus with energy, you talk about strength or lack of. Let me unpack this. Nigeria, 37 billion barrels of oil reserves, 206 TCF of gas reserves. Then when we connect that to what the possibilities are, it's endless. We had the chairman of the occasion talk about energy and Nigeria leading the pack. We had Professor Bartholomew Nnaji talk about the power of unveiling that strength in the character of what Nigeria could be. And let me connect this. If Nigeria puts the directed investment in building up our gas reserves and gas resources, Nigeria will be a standard power in the forefront of what President Mahama said as a leading light in Africa. Why? If you connect this, West African gas pipeline is already built. If we extend that as they're proposing to do, to go all the way to Morocco connecting to Spain, the Trans-Saharan gas pipeline connecting through the Sahara, again through African nations into Europe. If we go to the east, connecting through Central African Republic going down south, imagine unleashing 206 TCF. That is production of gas volumes for over 50 years. Imagine what that would do to 54 countries on this continent. Another strength we must think about, and this is what I'm going to leave all of us with. If we see Russia with the geopolitical situation in Europe, the Nord Stream 1 and Nord Stream 2 gas pipeline, Russia was selling $500 million of gas per day into Europe. Just think about that connectivity and the strength of what President Mahama said and what our discussant leader said, where Nigeria could be in the forefront of driving Africa's growth. Thank you very much.
Okay,
thank you very much, Chief Kola Karim. Again, very quickly, I'd like to acknowledge the presence in our midst of Mr. Olatunji Ayola and also Kunle Bakare. Kunle Bakare is a publisher of Encomium. Now, next to take the podium, I invite Mr. Donald Duke, former governor of Cross River State.
Chairman, Your Excellencies, Your Majesties, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Dele, congratulations, Roy. Congratulations on your birthday. Let me share a story with us, and you can contextualize it as you may. In 1985, I was a young intern in a law firm in Washington, D.C. called Baker & Hostetler. My immediate boss, the late Mrs. Betty Murphy, was Secretary of Labor under Richard Nixon and Gerald Ford. And one afternoon, she invited me to her office and in a rebuking manner asked me a question: what is wrong with Nigeria? I was barely 23 years old, so I didn't understand what she talked about, but I just felt that everything was wrong with Nigeria at the time. She said she had just come back from the White House and had a meeting with the Chief of Staff to President Reagan, and they were very upset with Nigeria. They had proposed building a trans-African pipeline from Nigeria's Niger Delta through Niger into Algeria to Europe to forestall Soviet gas. It was the politics of gas, and we're talking about leadership here. I thought it was a brilliant idea. We talked about the Niger Delta. At that time, I didn't even understand what the Niger Delta was all about. But it was going to be paid for totally by the Western world. We were not going to, all they wanted from us was agreement, and they would do it. And from there, we could tee off gas to distribute to the rest of the country. But we gave a condition. And the condition was the United States will have to pull out of South Africa. She said it was a very stupid thing for us to do, and I agree. That you first get what you want. You know, like in the aircraft, you wear your mask before you look after others. And she said, no one gives the United States conditions. She reminded me that at the Bay of Pigs, where there were missiles, Soviet missiles facing the United States, there were also NATO missiles in Turkey facing the Soviet Union at the time. But the condition the Russians gave was, of course, you take out your missiles from Turkey and we'll take out our missiles from Cuba. The Americans agreed, but on condition that you do not tell the world that we obliged you that. It would have made more sense if we had agreed, and would have had a lot more leverage if we had agreed to allow the pipeline go through. Today it's a difficult situation because you're going to go through Niger. Niger is fully aligned with Russia today. I do not think they would even allow that to happen. But this is a nation that at one point were flaring 2.5 billion cubic feet of gas daily. That's an equivalent of 25 million liters of diesel. You think of it, for over 40 years we were flaring, burning 25 million liters of diesel. Talking about in the abundance of water. The fool is thirsty. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Where's that music coming from? Thank you very much, Mr. Donald Duke. You know, sometimes these DJs, if you don't call them to order, and they... Okay, thank you, Mr. Donald Duke, former governor of Cross River State. Okay, now, before we go to Ife, I see Dr. Ephraim Faloi is in the hall. Thank you for coming, sir. And Consul General of the South African High Commission and his wife, both of them are also here. My colleague, Kaudi Akitemi, I see you. Thank you for coming to support Bob Deal. Well, let me now call on the Onirisha, Oni Adimola, His Royal Majesty Adeyeye Ogunwusi, Oni of Ife Ojaja II.
Your Excellencies, the celebrant of today, our dear brother, I think I see you more as Nigerian than even Ghanaian. The elders that are here, the political leaders of their country, at least I've seen two here, the Kakwansia movement and our amiable tsunami from Labour Party. Please give all of them a resounding round of applause. I even noticed something about the Kakwansia movement. Their logo, the red and white, I looked through his shoe today. I saw that it's actually indeed red and white. But I looked around. Maybe distinguished Senator Tokumbo Afikuyomi, part of APC, that's his hair. But I'm very happy that this hall is indeed all-party affair of their country. Our nation is way bigger than any one of us, way bigger than any political party or anything that has to do with party affiliation. The day we all sit down to talk about our interest commonly as a nation, other than our selfish interests as individuals, things will be better for their country. We're stronger as a nation individually than us doing things very collectively. And that has been the problem of their nation. People came, spoke very briefly, aptly, straight to the point. They are leaders, both in the private sector and public sector. A lot of Nigerians can actually talk and talk about the solution of this problem. But what are we all doing? It's very important for us to know. We've been talking about gas abundance for a very long time. We've been talking about so many things in this country that are in abundance, that we can actually even extract, and we will not focus on dollar economy. But the truth be told, the day as a nation that we start doing things not individually, the day we realize that this country is bigger than all of us, a good example of the celebrant today, that you are bringing all political parties together, irrespective of your party affiliation, that we will realize that Nigeria is bigger than all of us, then we will be a better nation. For us to settle all these problems of energy is no rocket science. And that's the truth. It's because of our selfish interest That's the reason why we've been having a lot of bottlenecks here and there. Selfish interest. So I want to appeal to each and every one of us. Talk is cheap. Enough of talking and talking and talking as a nation. Let us look at this nation beyond all of us, bigger than all of us, and let us jointly and collectively look at things that will be betterment, that will be in good structure and in a very futuristic manner that can better the lot of even generation yet unborn. On this day, I want to thank God Almighty for the celebrant's life. What you are doing, you have actually displayed selflessness that is very rare in our country by upgrading this all. Let each and every one of us pick our public utilities, whatever we can do. Government cannot do it all. Let us imbibe this culture. What the celebrant has actually done today, I want each and every one of us to give him a resounding round of applause. He bought new ACs and a new carpet and gave this place a very good uplift. So, as a nation, what are you doing? God bless you all and God bless Nigeria. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Your Royal Majesty. Now, I think we're doing well with time, but at this point, first, I saw Ayuanima Shaun of HIP TV. Ayuanima Shaun, thank you for coming. Who else is here? Well, the organizing team. Your Royal Majesty. Now, I think we're doing well with time. But at this point, first, I saw Ayuanima Shaun of HIP TV. Ayuanima Shaun, thank you for coming. Who else is here? Well, the organizing team, Folusho Adiagbo, Otumba Sheyi, Orolugbagbe, Mike Effiong, Azu Arinze, great work. You guys have done very well. You can give yourselves a round of applause, the organizing committee. Thank you very much indeed. Now, at this point, we'll go into a segment called Goodwill Messages. And I'm going to invite a veteran journalist. You know, one of the things we're discussing today is journalism, public affairs. And the first person I would like to call on is Mrs. Bimbo Oloyede. Mrs. Bimbo Oloyede. Is she still around? She was sitting somewhere there. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. For many who grew up in the early 70s, 80s, you remember Bimbo Roberts until she became Bimbo Roberts Oloyede. And she has remained very active. At a point, she was reading news occasionally on Channels TV to show example of professionalism to the younger generation. Of late, she has moved on to other causes, promoting awareness about cancer. Good to have you here, ma'am.
Your Royal Majesty, Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. I think Dr. Reuben Abati must have had some kind of sixth sense that I was about to leave. So he caught me, but it was for a good reason. And the good reason is our celebrant, Chief Dele Momodu. Well, it's a goodwill message, and I actually have nothing more than goodwill for him. I have admired him for a long time. He has been a good brother, a good friend, a good professional. The other day I sent him a message. I said, I wonder what your passport looks like. It just occurred to me, you know, when you think about all the places that he has been to, and I think of all the stamps, and I wonder whether we have more stamps than passport. But anyway, I want to congratulate him for the wonderful work that he has done over the years. I think he's one of the most consistent journalists that I can say we have in this country. He is also very professional, and he is a creative journalist. He sees opportunities to report and inform, to educate and entertain in virtually every situation in which he finds himself. I wonder sometimes whether he sleeps. And even when he's asleep, what kind of dreams does he have? Is it possible that the dreams are more than the reality? I'm not sure. But we need to congratulate him. We need to celebrate with him. We need to wish him God's continued guidance and protection and blessings. And I want to say publicly that I will probably never forget something that happened some years ago when both of us happened to find ourselves shooting a commercial for a particular product in South Africa. We were in Cape Town, and we got to the place, we got to the hotel, and we were sorting out our checking in and that sort of thing. And Chief Momodu said, Auntie, don't imagine you're going to pay for your hotel accommodation. Please, that's on me. So let me take this opportunity to say publicly, thank you very much. God bless you. And may your pockets be continually replenished. In the name of Jesus. Happy birthday. See you again next year.
Okay, we're trying to keep faith with the 2 p.m. deadline. Okay, we're not doing badly. Thank you very much, Mrs. Oluide. Well, I told you there are many veteran journalists here. Earlier on, I introduced Mr. Sonny Rabo. I introduced Mr. Michael Yemfa, Mrs. Bimbo Oluide, Kunle Bakare. I think Kunle Bakare, too, has qualified to be called a general in the media profession. But it's not surprising that all the big journalists are here. But the next person I'm going to call is from a place called Igbajo, and he's a veteran. And he's not tired. He's still very active. And you know him, of course, Voice of Nigeria, you know, Biscon TV, and this high chief of the media in Nigeria is polyglot. He can speak only God knows how many languages. Mr. Bisi Olatilo, founder of Biscon TV.
May I please ask us to put our hands together for this gentleman here. Do you know that I had to finish watching you before I set out? You wouldn't believe it. I do that every day. Well done, Ruben Abati. Now, the man was celebrating today. I am only 70 years. The man is 64. And when he sees me, he goes down to greet me the way we do, to show respect for me. May God bless you, Dele. What do we say about Dele that hasn't been said here and will have to be said continuously? My prayer for you, please, just keep on the thing you'll be doing. They're just increasing by today. Now, Professor Bartholomew Nnaji, congratulations for the revolution you have ignited that has brought power to the whole of Abia. I'm hoping that you'll ignite it to all parts of Nigeria. Can kenegi ni bono jidon kiji, marankibi oye jidon kedema ane tiene berekona galo gendi bono bachu because call ni akabiko. Now, ladies and gentlemen, of course you know that I present a program called BOS, which is just 1 hour a week on people's platforms. But like you heard my younger brother say a while ago, I run a 24-hour platform in the last 7 years. And you guys, you know that power is hardly there in Nigeria. So if I had been operating in another environment that has power in good supply, I wouldn't have been a big man today. And I know I'm speaking the minds of so many of us here. So, Dele, it's a birthday present we're giving to all of us. I have been in school here, I've learned so much, and I will pray along with it so that what this man is doing in Aba can be translated to all parts of Nigeria. May God bless you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much.
Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, we're almost drawing to a close. Just to remind us again that this was broadcast live on Arise TV, GH1, Pulse TV, News Central, and also Ovation TV. Now, to bring the occasion to a close, we have the chairman's closing remarks, and after that, Dele Momodu will give the vote of thanks. Chairman's closing remarks. President Mahama, please.
Thank you very much. Let me begin by commending our special guest speaker, Keynote, who gave the keynote address, Prof, for what has been a very comprehensive analysis of the theme that was given. You took it from the broad perspective of the rest of the world, especially with regards to the transition that is taking place as a result of climate change, and then eventually you zeroed in onto Nigeria and West Africa. I think that your paper has ignited a lot of critical thinking about what the way forward is, and so I want to commend you very much. And I want to commend Dr. Peter Obi, Alhaji, and all the others who commented after, because your comments have enriched the paper that we just listened to. Dele and I come a long way back, and he was hounded out of Nigeria because of his political views, and he came and sought exile in Ghana. And so Nigeria's loss was Ghana's gain, because you lost a very intelligent and good son, and we gained, you know, a very loyal brother. If there's one thing that I can say for Dele, is loyalty to his friends. If he believes in you and he accepts you, he stands by you through thick and thin. him and I have gone through a lot of political storms. Because of his support for me, you can understand what the political climate is in Ghana, especially in election years. He came out strongly endorsing me and, touting some of the transformational things that I tried to do in infrastructure. And of course, he became the target of missiles coming from the opposition. But you know the kind of person Dele is. He is not shaken by any of such things. He's continued to be my friend, and he stood by me through thick and thin. When he announced this inaugural lecture, I was a bit afraid because I thought that the time was quite short. But knowing who Dele is, he can always pull anything out of fire. And so I believe that this has been a very successful lecture. He is a person who is intellectual. He writes brilliantly. There are times I've been with him, and the deadline for his column is just hours away, and I wonder how he's going to meet that deadline. But somehow the next day on my phone, I see he has written the column and written it to perfection. And so to celebrate his birthday, he couldn't have given us a better present than instituting this inaugural lecture, which is going to be an annual affair. And I think that he couldn't have chosen a better topic than the issue of energy politics. And I believe that President Nnaji has done justice to that topic. And so I want to thank all of you and to say happy birthday to my friend and my brother, Dele Momodu. May God continue to prosper you, to bless you, to continue to do the things that you do, not only for friends like us, but also for our continent, Africa. Our moderator mentioned my special relationship with Nigeria, and Governor Kwakanso mentioned that too. I also lived in exile for some time with my father after a coup d'etat in Ghana. And I lived in Kano, and that's how come I speak Hausa, proficiently. But aside from that, my stepmother comes from Offa in Kwara State, and so Kwara is my home state.